We're delighted to partner the CII CFO conference because the CFO community is a community very, very close to our heart and a community that we talk to every hour of every day. So we're delighted to see all of you here. We are going to talk about a variety of issues. We'll talk about strategy versus handling finance. We'll talk about fundraising, which is really one of the most important jobs that CFOs do for young companies. We'll talk about putting in processes and governance systems at this stage. We'll talk about culture and conflicts, and all of these topics are represented in the questions that you have with you. So please participate in the SurveyMonkey poll. Make sure you respond to some of them because we will be playing out some of the responses through the course of the discussion. I'm going to start first by asking Sanjay, what kind of role does a CFO in a young company, I won't call Flipkart a startup, but in a young company, what kind of a role does the CFO play? One of the startup CFOs I was talking to, sort of off record to get a sense of what I should discuss today. And he said, I think CFOs in a young company are like driving instructors, right? They ought to allow or be able to allow the company to learn to drive and fly when it needs to, but have a hand on the brake at all times. And I was wondering if that describes well the role you play. How would you put it? In what words would you put it?
Yeah, so, we heard it in the morning itself, that the role of a CFO for even any company is described as Parthasarathy. So that's so clearly, yes, it is a function where you are the support, you are the sounding board, you are part of the strategy, and you're part of the custodian in terms of making sure that the risk which is taken, and more so in a startup where the risks are that much higher, you need to be that much more vigilant in terms of your ability to give them a sense of the risk that they're taking in any decision that happens. Clearly, a company, a startup, the basic phenomenon of a startup is risk-taking ability, and that nobody is going to stop that. But I think what is important is that as a CFO, you need to let them know the repercussions, the pros and the cons very clearly, and then obviously the informed decision would be taken. You will be part of it, but at least people are much more aware than ever before.
How would you describe the conflict? And I don't want to use the word conflict, but the pull and push between strategy and sort of the nuts and bolts of finance. Any illustrations in the recent past 1 year where your word has won over the strategy vision word in that sense, or do you lose all the time?
No, I think strategy in any company it's not a one-person show. It's a combined decision of the entire management team, where CFO has a very important part. The fact that you are able to calibrate that and simulate and tell them as to what it means in terms of a particular strategy, then helps take the right decision. That's what as CFO we believe and we want to do. So there have not been any conflicts per se, but yes, you've been able to mold it in a particular direction.
Sanjay, are you on board with all the discounting that goes on?
Yes, so clearly,
I was hoping you'd refer to it, but since you've left it to me,
the focus has been on growth for the last 6-7 years as far as the company is concerned. But one added twist has been given now. Now we call it profitable revenue growth, and I think that's the change that we want to drive ourselves over the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. And that these are subtle changes. Discounts, I think that's an industry phenomena. I think, but that's very, very practical. I don't think that's a long-term strategy for anybody or any company.
I'm going to get more comments into this conversation. Now, look, you're co-founder and CFO. Do you see sometimes a difference of opinion in the way the guys doing the strategy think, and you in control of finances thinks, and therefore there is this, tug of war?
So I won't say there is a sort of struggle with strategy side. It's more from the business side. See, business has their own dynamics, and a lot of times they would not want to be tied down with any processes or controls. And in my role, because I'm a co-founder also, so I have to obviously align with the overall direction of the company.
Right.
But on the other side, there has to be someone who has to also see the risks which are involved. You have to also think little long term. You can't just think short term all the time. There have been multiple examples where me and my co-founder Yashish have not totally agreed on the approach of any particular.
Lovely, tell us more.
No, I'll come to the example, don't worry. But what typically happens is, as co-founders, you have to respect each other a lot and give space to each other. In our case, Yashish is more of a salesperson, living off the edge. He's very, very quick decision making. He's quite impatient in a lot of these things. I, on the other side, is almost opposite. And he gives me space where he thinks I need to take charge, and obviously I give him space wherever he needs to take charge. I understand he's a CEO, so eventually he has to have the veto power. But we have somehow managed to balance that out, and that's one of the reasons that we have been able to survive for the last 7 years together. Because in early stage you go through so many ups and downs that unless you have support from each other, it becomes really, really tough. I'll give an example. Like at some point, there was a BD used to report into Yashish, and they mentioned that invoicing from finance takes time. And
what is BD?
Business development team.
BD, oh yeah, okay. Fine.
So Yashish and the team wanted that BD should do their own invoicing. Now they don't understand tax part, they don't understand the accounting part, and they just cannot do it right. But from their perspective, there was a delay. Now, if the receivables are 90 days, delay of 2 days is nothing. If you follow the process, it won't be more than 2 days anyways. But that's what they wanted to do, because they were not very, very keen to follow the processes which we have set out before invoicing has to happen. But in that particular case, I put my foot down saying, no, this is not the way. I'm not going to allow it, whatever happens. And eventually they came around. We set up a process, sitting with them, explaining to them why it's needed, how it's going to work. And it works normally right now. There have been other instances.
Do you think you prevailed because you're also co-founder? Do you think that if it was a professional CFO that your company had hired from the outside, that maybe they would have respected his word, but he would not have prevailed as much as you have?
In our scenario, most probably yes. You're right.
Is that
because in our scenario, he will totally bulldoze. So no one will listen to external guy very easily. Okay. So that's quite common. I can give you so many examples. So one of the favorite examples. In between about 3-4 years back, and we had not raised decent amount of funding by then, so we were always focused on collections quite a lot. And there are always promises that okay, collection will come on last day of the month, but typically it can get delayed by a couple of days. That's quite usual. So we said, okay, in that case, from top down, people will not get salary on 31st, they'll get salary maybe on 3rd. So 2-3 things happen in such cases. In our case, one is very, very surprising, that people who get salary feel bad that why did we get salary and when some other people have not got the salary. So that's the sort of alignment they have got, which is good. On the other hand, what we actually created a rule was that in case collections don't happen on time, the people who are responsible for collection, the BD team will get the salary, and the people will not get the salary. We'll inform everyone that they have got the salary. So that puts the extra pressure on them. So that's sort of reverse psychology or whatever you want to call it. But these are the sort of calls you have to take, and as co-founder, it becomes a little easy for you to take this call.
Okay, and the headline I take away from our conversation is the co-founder of Policy Bazaar says his CEO is living on the edge.
Oh, that's always there. A lot of people would not know, but he's national swimming champion. He holds swimming records. He's triathlon champion in India. He's going for Ironman very soon, so he's a different person.
Okay, fine, fair. Would your CFO describe you, Kaushik, as living on the edge?
I hope not. I think that one of the things which I was just thinking as you were speaking about risk. To me, a good CFO is like a good lawyer. They recognize that everything is a risk in some ways.
You simply alienated all the CFOs in the audience right now.
So sorry. But I have a lot of respect for lawyers as well as CFOs, so let me, no disrespect intended. But the idea is that there is risk in everything that you do, and someone who has good judgment who's able to say what is an acceptable risk versus not. And I think that's really critical, and that's what CEOs are looking for. And I think certainly from my perspective, I think most CEOs will feel the same way, especially in the startup environment, which is the CEO job is a very lonely job. And in fact, the CFO tends to be the perfect partner because they are the closest to data. They tend to be more seasoned. They tend to be more balanced. Of course, the job of the CEO is to be optimistic and to think that all risks are acceptable risks. But once you have a good partnership and you have faith in that other person's judgment, you understand that when they're really counseling you against taking a risk, that there's a reason.
So
for it.
Alok's given us several illustrations. Add to that list of illustrations by telling me when you have prevailed over your CFO. Just so that our audience gets a sense of what the pull and push is.
It's a great. Look, we are a very consumer-driven healthcare business, and one of our key goals that we want to do is to put patients first in everything that we do. And so, one example of that was right towards the start. We said that if someone comes in and they buy an annual membership, and for whatever reason they're not happy. Let's say they thought something else before coming in, or we weren't able to give a good experience. Let's make sure we can refund the money back. And our CFO was very opposed to it, and they said it's a risk and it's a cash business, and maybe we should make consumers write into our corporate office for a refund check, which would happen maybe after 2 weeks. And so, one of those things you said as a consumer-focused company, that's an acceptable risk to take. That we must make sure that if people are not happy, that we're rectifying it right away. And it's been proven out. I mean, our experience has been that very few people take the refund, very few people abuse it, and so far it's worked out well. But that's an example.
Okay, discounts are winning, refunds are winning, CFOs are losing, I think. Amit, you're at the cusp of some very interesting change for your company.
Yeah.
You also have RBI breathing down your neck. Or will be here onwards in ways that you cannot imagine at this point in time. What or how do you see your role changing? Because you've got to expand, you've got to grow, but you've got a really tough regulator who's drawing all these lines that you need to toe as well.
Yeah, so from the RBI perspective anyway, as a PPI license holder, we were regulated quite heavily. So it was a daily interaction.
It's going to get worse now.
It's
or better, depending on how much you enjoy regulation.
Yeah. Because that way we have had a very good relationship with RBI in terms of what we are doing and how
I don't know one company in the country who will sit on a panel and say, I've had a lousy relationship with the RBI.
No, even otherwise, I would say genuinely good relationship with them.
Okay.
So, but I have a very different take of how CFO role has evolved in our company.
Okay.
I think the way we look at it is CFO, the typical CFO role would kick in slightly later after a growth starts happening. So like as you can see, we have a wide variety of businesses that we are growing into, and each of them have a different flavor. So the fear for us always is that am I as a CFO becoming a roadblock into the growth of the business, which is what the essence of a startup is at the end of the day. So what we look at it, let people try whatever they are. They will not hit my balance sheet, do anything wrong till the time it starts scaling up to a certain level. So ideally the way we look at as a CFO role is, it's to build those constructs so that and those structures and those processes in place so that whatever is scaling up scales in a proper way without losing money or anything, and it's a valid business. But before it hits that critical mass, there's no control. Like there's just no control. Let things happen. As it happens, once it starts scaling up, then starts putting in those structures. So sort of a follow-up role. But then very important to ensure that when it starts scaling up, it starts scaling up as a valid business and not as a sort of any loss-making proposition or any other thing.